Test. Can you hear us? Okay. And do we have a couple
This
of aldermen
conference
joining us?
will now be
virtually?
recorded.
Yes. Where are they?
They were on. Mark is on. One was on.
Okay.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Mark was on there.
Okay. I'd like to call the Common Council meeting of Tuesday, July 13th to order. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Is that the voice of God over the phone? The first item on our agenda after, wait a minute, am I skipping? Oh yeah, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Here.
Alderman Bushy?
Here.
Alderman Meyer?
Here.
Alderman Hansher?
Here.
Alderman Garrell?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Schneider?
Here.
Alderman Nurbin?
Here.
And Mayor Ward.
Here. We have a quorum. The next item is personal appearances. Just a minute. Thought I had it. It's a sign we should get.
And it sounds like a public works meeting.
There we go. This section is for public appearances and public comment. We've had one person register. Mr. Wallerstein, if you could, can you step, you okay to step to the microphone?
Hi, my name is Bob Wallerstein. I live at 4707 West Parkview Drive. Lived in Mequon for close to 48, 49 years. When we moved in, we were the young kids on a block pushing strollers, and now we are the official senior citizens. I'm going to start off with a quote from one of my favorite movies, The Scent of a Woman, when Robert De Niro, I believe, said, in that movie, I've been around. I have been. I was the chair of the Economic Development Board. I was on Board of Review, the county supervisor for 6 years, and chair of the Economic Development Board, Board of Review, and the Park Board. What I want to do is also the president of Mequon Country Estates for probably 40-some years because nobody else wants the job. So it's okay, you can live with it. We have 144 people in our subdivision. It's one of the oldest subdivisions. Actually, a few years ago was an idea we had, just give you a little history of our subdivision, of setting the Guinness Book of World Records. And I spent some time and found out that the shortage, 4th of July parade was like 1/8 of a mile. I said, oh, we can beat that. So we set it up and we set a record for 116 feet. We had coverage on Channel 4, Channel 12, Channel 6, and also an LA station picked it up. So we got pretty good coverage on it. Several years ago, they put a new lift station in, and it was originally going to have maybe a couple of trees to hide it, and of course, we have a couple architects in our subdivision, and they said, no, we should do better than that. And they did. They came out with a wonderful design, sat down with your people. It went through and did a beautiful job, put a wall in, plantings. They did everything you said that could be done was done, and we're very happy with it, and it looks beautiful. What I want to do now is something for the city. No cost to the city, we'll take care of it. In front of that wall on Parkview Drive and Mequon Road on the east side where the lift station is, there's an area about 4 feet wide, gravel. And then the grass and everything else is there. I want to put at our subdivision's expense a park bench. There are park benches in Thiensville all over the place, but there's not one place for anybody who's walking Mequon Road to relax. Not only that, but I have two aldermen I spoke to, Glenn Bushy and Mark Harrell, and they both support the idea. And Glenn gave me a great idea. He says, well, you know, he did one at his house. That's a good idea. He did a dog bowl, and he fills it with water, so as people walk their dogs, they can have to sit down, water the dog. So I said, that's a great idea. So I'll get a gallon of water, blah, blah, and put a dish down, and we'll buy a park bench. Of course, I'm 75 years old now, and the word no is something I don't really like. I don't have that much more time. So I talked to our city engineer, and she said, you can't do it. I said, can't or won't allow? Well, that's We Energy's property and blah, blah, blah. There's a way. I've been in politics for years. I've been on boards, on committees. There's a ways of getting around practically anything. And this is at no expense to you. It's going to add to the city. And that's basically it. Any questions?
Bob, we appreciate the comments, and we'll make sure we get back to you, but typically our personal appearance section is not a dialogue. It's
Oh, I
comments.
love dialogues.
So anyhow, thank you very much for your comments, and I'll make sure somebody gets back to you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public officials reports. The first item is mayor. I don't actually have a report this evening, but I'm gonna there's an award to be given, and I'm going to allow that to be done during my report period. So whomever is doing this, if you could step forward, that would be great.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Alderman. My name is Officer Phil Nelson. I've been with the city a little less than 8 years on the Army Reserves for about 21 years. I'm a combat medic, Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. My current role in the Reserves, I'm an Emergency Preparedness Liaison Officer, which is a liaison between FEMA and active duty and Army Reserve troops. A few years ago, when I interviewed for a sergeant position, Justin came, and one of the questions was, what are some of the things that you would do to improve the city? And I looked at it, and it's something that's affected me throughout my time in the department, is the financial hardship that we take. It's no secret that people don't raise their right hand to become rich. So typically what I've had to do in various trainings is take my vacation time to sort of make up the difference. I make roughly half of what I do from the military to the reserves. Last year, when I was mobilized to help assist with the alternate care facility and State Fair, I was mobilized for roughly a month. Justin stepped up and said, hey, the city would like to help you out financially. Send us all your pay stubs and we'll make up the difference. And that was a game changer. That was you know, amazing offer. This past April through June, I was deployed at the Wisconsin Center, and Justin again stepped up and made the same offer. A few years ago, just because of my operational tempo, I awarded then Sergeant Riley and Sergeant Grace Sarek a Patriot Award with the Employee Services of the Guard and Reserve. I wanted to again recognize the city and Justin with the next higher award, the Seven Seals Award, and Mr. Jim Malcolm would like to explain a little bit more of that.
Thank you, Philip. Mr. Mayor and all the aldermen, first of all, introducing myself, I lived in Mequon for 28 years, moved about 5 years ago up to Belgium, but I still go to church here, still shop here. I'm in Mequon all the time. So enjoyed living here. It was just when the kids got moved away, we had to go somewhere else for a while. Again, my name's Jim Malcolm, and I am a volunteer with the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. I'm a volunteer, as are all team members in the ESGR. I'm excited to be here this evening for a special recognition for the City of Mequon and one of your city colleagues. Before the presentation, if I could take a minute to give you a brief overview of the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. The ESGR is a part of the Department of Defense. I'm actually a DoD employee as a volunteer. It was created in 1972 at the end of the Vietnam War with the vision to create a group of volunteers to work with our military reserves, the National Guard, and all their civilian employers. The Department of Defense had the foresight that as the draft was ending, that the dependency on the Guard and Reserve would increase, greatly impacting their employers. It's important again to stress our name is the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. Our mandate from the DoD is to be that conduit between the Guard, Reserve members, and their employers. We're in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam. In Wisconsin, we have 110 volunteers, 3 of which live in Mequon. Our mission is to promote cooperation between our country's military reserves, the National Guard, and again, their civilian employers. We have 3 main areas of focus. Employer outreach, that's what I'm here for tonight. Military outreach. Every member of the Guard and Reserve in the state is required to get a USARA briefing from ESGR across the whole country at least once a year. And ombudsman regarding USARA regulations. Today, under the Employer Outreach Mission, I'm here to present an ESGR and Department of Defense 7 SEALs Award. One of your employees, Sergeant First Class Philip Nelson of the U.S. Army Reserves, has nominated the City of Mequon and Justin Shinneman, did I get it right this time? Thank you, for this award. If you guys would both come forward. I'm going to read a portion of Philip's nomination. The City of Mequon and Justin provided extraordinary support for me recently when I was mobilized as a liaison between FEMA and active duty soldiers in the vaccination clinic at the Wisconsin Center. They deserve to be recognized, as do my fellow officers in the Mequon Police Department, for supporting me during my deployment. A couple comments. The history of our great country has had many turnabouts or turning points that have made this country who we are today. The backbone of our freedom began with citizen soldiers, just like Sergeant First Class Philip Nelson defending our liberties. If you think about it, volunteering to defend our liberties can be traced back to Wednesday, April 19, 1775, at the Battle of Lexington, when 77 Minutemen, just like Philip, took off from their jobs to stand shoulder to shoulder against 700 British regulars. It continues today with excellent employers like the City of Mequon, supporting its employees who volunteer for the National Guard and Reserves. So I have the award here. I'm going to ask Philip to read the award.
Presented to Justin Shinneman, City of Mequon, for meritorious leadership and initiative in support of the men and women who serve in the National Guard and Reserve.
Just like to add in closing, this opportunity that presented us when Phil was activated served as a blueprint of how we wanted to treat future reserves who get activated, and it was my privilege just to be the person who got to bring everyone together to make that happen. Wasn't just me who helped to make all this come together. Conversations with our administrator, our police chief, so it was definitely what I think was the easy thing for us to do. We had the easy part. It's Phil and the others who get called to serve our fellow governmental layers that have the hard part. So thanks for letting us support you.
Hey! Officer Nelson and Mr. Malcolm, before you we'd be remiss in not thanking you for your service, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates before we get into the heart of our agenda. The revaluation process that was authorized by the Common Council last year has now kicked off into high gear. Notice of new assessments were mailed to all property owners here in Mequon back on June 30th. And so they should have hit all residential property owners and commercial property owners the first week of July. As many of us know, a revaluation is a determination of new values for taxation purposes. The last revaluation was conducted here in Mequon in 2009, over 12 years ago. And the purpose is to ensure uniformity across the tax base so that all property owners pay their fair share. Property owners having received their notices of new assessment have an opportunity to meet with the city assessor coming up during the week of July 26th. This is known as open book, and appointments can be handled either by telephone or email and can be made by calling the city's assessor's office at 262-236-2952. Residents who are seeking to appeal their property assessments may appear before the Board of Review. Those meetings will be kicking off in mid-September. Full details are available on the assessor's page of the city website at ci.mequon.wi.us. And then lastly, representatives from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation will be at next month's Common Council meeting to provide a presentation to the council as well as the community regarding the upcoming I-43 expansion project, which will be kicking off here later this fall and into early next year. Project phasing, timelines, local improvements, and traffic impacts will all be discussed. Residents and other interested parties who would like to learn more can attend the meeting in person or virtually through their computer. The meeting starts at 7:30 p.m. and will be held on Tuesday, August 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next on our agenda, we have our consent agenda. There are 11 sets of minutes, one resolution that's part of the consent agenda, and that's a resolution 3855, which authorizes final plat approval for the Enclave Phase 5, the Enclave at Mequon Preserve, which is simply a continuation of a subdivision that's already been there. That resolution was recommended by the Planning Commission on June 28th. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody want to remove anything? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
We also have two ordinance first readings. The ordinance 2021-1594. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 58 of the Municipal Code relating to chickens. This was recommended by Public Welfare on June 8th. There was a recommendation to deny by the Planning Commission on June 28th. And again, this is a first reading. It will be taken up next month. And ordinance 2021-1595, an ordinance repealing and recreating section 62-8B4 relating to the regulation of political messages. Public Welfare, did you take action on this? Or was recommended by Public Welfare on June 8th. I can't read. And again, this is a first reading. The next item on the agenda is our Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 4, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, corrections, suggestions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 And next, we're going to have a presentation by one of the members or one or more of the members of the future of our fire department. They put together a report on facilities and equipment. If you could please come to one of the tables and let us know. Yep, have a seat. If you want to pull chairs up might be easier if you come to the same table. Before you get going, I'd like to extend the thanks on behalf of the council for a long period of hard work good results, good communications with the council. It's been everything I had hoped for when we put together the committee. So thank you. I know two of our council members, Alderman Meyer chaired the committee, as well as Alderman Schneider. And Alderman Schneider before her were members of the committee. So that being said, if you can give us a thorough but brief presentation, that would be great.
Well, good evening. Let me begin by introducing myself for those of you who I don't know. My name is Lynn Streeter, and my husband and I have been...
A little closer.
Closer?
Yes,
Better?
please.
My husband and I have been Mequon residents for about 30 years, and I have had the privilege of serving this community in healthcare for over 40 years. I want to take the opportunity to thank the mayor for giving me this opportunity to serve my community, and I'm grateful for that. We've had a very robust committee who've met for the last 22 months, and so let me introduce them to you. Alderman Dale Mayer has chaired our group and led us through a challenging time as we maneuvered our way through this pandemic and continued to meet. Melissa Bladehorn, who's with us this evening, Kirsten Hildebrand. Rick Lemke is with me and will share in this evening's presentation. Rick represents Mequon Fire and EMS Association, Alderman Kathleen Schneider, and Deputy Chief Kurt Zellman. The committee members and the chief are with me this evening and available to join us in responding to any of your questions. As a reminder, this group was appointed by our mayor to evaluate Mequon Fire and EMS services, to bring recommendations to this body regarding both the current state and the future needs of our fire department and our EMS services. We did our work in 2 phases. The first phase was a 14-month process to develop a staffing report, which we previously presented to you, and the committee would like to thank you for taking actions on that report and moving our city forward. The last 8 months have been focused on 3 additional areas: our facilities, our equipment, and our information technology infrastructure. As part of our work, I think it's important to understand the rigor that we put into this. We spent time at our firehouses. We spent time meeting with and interviewing members of our fire department. We looked virtually at fire departments in other communities, but those communities that are in our market and those communities that we will compete with to recruit and retain our staff. We've had open discussions with members of the fire department who actively and willingly engaged with us. The level of commitment that you have from both the leadership and the rank and file of this fire department is absolutely outstanding and made me very, very proud as a citizen. We met with the DPW director, Kristen Lundeen, to begin to understand how some of these internal processes work. And finally, we waited to make sure that we could discuss the consolidation study report prepared by the Wisconsin Policy Forum to see if in any way that would influence our final recommendations. So this evening, we're going to break this down, if you will, into 3 bodies of discussions. I'll speak with you first about our facilities, and then I will defer to Rick to talk to you about equipment and our information technology. Our building and our facilities. So Station 1, and hopefully you're all familiar with and have been inside our buildings, is located on Buntrock Avenue and was built in 1985. As you know, this public safety building is shared with our police department, and within that facility, what we are currently providing is we are providing limited office space. We're providing bays for 13 vehicles. We have outdated support space in our kitchen and our day room. We have inefficiencies in our design to meet the way we need to work today. We have 6 dorm rooms and we have a training room. Now let's talk about Station 2. And as we think about Station 2, it's important to remember that due to our population density, The majority of our call volume is going to flow through and be in the geographic area of Station 2. We don't see that changing in the future, and I think that's an important consideration as we look to what our needs are. Station 2 was built in 1974. It has a very small office. It has very outdated facilities in terms of kitchens and day room. It has bays for 5 vehicles. It has 4 dorm rooms and is inefficient for the functions they need to obtain today. One of the important things that our committee quickly understood is these facilities were not built to provide living quarters. They weren't built to be places where the firefighters and EMS workers who are serving our community would be sleeping and spending their time. And we don't believe that those facilities meet the standard that we would want for that level of functionality. So now let's talk about the deficits that we found. What we found, and we found at both stations, were some safety concerns. And some of us looked very closely at safety issues like cracked concrete outside of our stations, and that despite efforts to improve, continue to be a problem. Lack of fire sprinkler systems. The living accommodations for the staff that are there overnight really aren't very adequate. There's poor HVAC system, there's no soundproofing, water systems don't function the way we would like, our kitchen environment really doesn't meet the needs of a workforce that we're going to ask to serve and to sleep there. There's lack of space to do work within the way work needs to be done today. By and large, the facilities, and particularly the facility located on Port Washington Road, truly functions as a garage. And we need to understand the functionality we need going forward. So now let's look at what the additional issues are so that we understand them at Station 2. At Station 2, we have ongoing issues of flooding. In our basement dormitory rooms, we have air quality concerns. We don't have an adequate number of rooms for dorms. We have a lack of adequate space for additional equipment. We don't have functional meeting space. We don't have office space or study space that's functional. And overall, I think it's a facility that doesn't meet a standard that we would want to see today. One of the things that we did as part of our journey was to try to understand what's happening in the communities around us. To what level and to what standard are they being built in our market? We want to understand that, both to understand current functionality. We want to understand that to make sure that we're adequately serving our workforce that is there. And we want to understand that because these are the markets in which we will be recruiting. And so we were fortunate that we were able to obtain photos of facilities in our community to help give both our committee and you a picture. So our recommendation, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone, is that major upgrades are needed to our facilities. We do believe that Station 2 requires replacement. It's not a modification. It's not a minor construction project. We believe Station 2 requires that a new facility be built, and we believe that a replacement facility to begin the planning process should begin now. The issues at Station 2 can't be fixed. We're not going to convert that facility into something that's functional and a place where we would allow people and want people to sleep overnight. A larger facility will be needed to accommodate the growth because we know that that part of the city will continue to serve the largest part of our population. Station 1, on the other hand, will benefit from upgrades, and the upgrades that will be required can be done and accommodated within the current building. Our conclusion was that the East Side Fire Station is in poor condition. It's not adequate to serve our community or our department members, and we ask that the planning begin right away. We believe that regardless of any consolidation efforts, the population density will always warrant a facility on the east side of Mequon. This committee spent a great deal of time on this recommendation. We understand our obligation to be good stewards of resources, but we also understand what we in particular as community members would want for the fire department that is serving us. And so we'll share with you how we organized our recommendations with 3 areas of rationale. One is one of retention. It is not reasonable to ask and expect our members to live and work in the current conditions they have, and we have an opportunity to make it better. Recruitment. As the fire department continues to compete for both paid on-call and full-time employees, the physical appearance of this facility makes it difficult. It also makes it difficult to recruit outside of the geography if in essence we're going to be asking firefighters to spend the night in the facility to be in geographic proximity. We know that our firefighters need to respond quickly, and if they don't live in proximity, we would want to accommodate them by living within that facility when they're on shift. And finally, community pride. Mequon has a very high standard of development in this city, and it's a standard that all of us are proud of. And yet the fire stations, which take care of our first responders, the people who mean so very much to us, those facilities are substandards. What we stated in our report, and so I'll state tonight, is that our citizen committee members in particular were surprised and disappointed in the condition of our facilities, and we, as citizens, would like to do better for those who serve us. I'm going to turn it over to Rick now and ask Rick to speak to our equipment and our IT infrastructure.
Thank you. Rick Lemke. I've been a member of the fire department for 6 years now, a lifelong resident of Mequon. I get the good news. I could start with apparatus and equipment, vehicles, because the good news is we're in good shape on this front. The city has planned for vehicle replacements, has planned for equipment upgrades, and has followed through on those plans, and we feel comfortable with where we're at with vehicles and equipment. The city needs to continue to plan for needed upgrades to vehicles, and we see no reason that won't continue. So vehicles and equipment, we are in good shape. And we will move to information technology. Currently, our information technology is inadequate for a modern fire department. We have several examples of this. The first one is fire inspections. All businesses in Mequon get fire inspected once every year. Currently, I brought along a couple copies of how we do our inspections. We have handwritten inspection forms that are kind of carbon copied, and they go in these manila envelopes, and there's a room with file cabinets full of these. And that's how we do our inspections. As I was getting ready for this, it got me thinking to when was the last time I got a handwritten receipt from a business. I can go to the food truck at the farmer's market and get a emailed receipt to me. I can go to my small auto shop and they can look up the data on my car, what they've done to it. But yet our fire inspection reports are still done by hand and put in envelopes. And it's more than just an unprofessional look to our inspectors that are out doing this, having to do this by hand. It's inefficient. Instead of being able to work down a road and do all the inspections, you have to find the appropriate envelopes and work off of that. It's error prone. If somebody would lose this envelope, this business wouldn't get inspected next year because we don't have any way to track that it didn't get inspected except for an envelope that sits in the room. It's difficult to follow up with businesses if they have things that need remediation. There's no real system in place except for somebody pulling out the envelope and seeing that, oh, that this needs to get fixed. So we can't follow up. We can't email that business owner because it's a paper copy. We can't collect any data. If you ask me today how many of our businesses failed a fire inspection because of any number of reasons, we'd have no way to look that up. Someone would have to dig through all of the envelopes. So no data collection means no improvement. So that's a problem. And we're not integrated with other city departments when we have paper copies like this. So if a business opens in Mequon, the challenge is for us to know that that business opens so we can start inspecting and make a new envelope for them. This is a challenge because they might not get inspected, and it's also a challenge because we'd like to be in earlier on helping them meet the fire code. Instead of waiting till after they've opened and seeing that there's some things wrong, we'd like to be in on that sooner, and IT integration is needed to get that done. So that's one example of our IT issues. Another one I have is our payroll system. And on the next slide, you'll see some pictures of this. Our payroll form is a handwritten form. So when I work, I fill out where I was, what the call was. I sign this. I put in my hours. I do all these things all by hand. And then our administrative assistant has to compile all of these. There's going to be multiple of these for each call, depending on what apparatus you were on. And she has to compile all that by hand to figure out how many hours we worked. Tedious process, error prone. She then has to enter that into a access program for the fire department payroll that's full of glitches. By glitches, I mean that if she enters that somebody worked a 24-hour shift, the program reads that as they worked 0 hours. So she fixes that by entering 23.99 hours. Same thing if she enters 48 hours, the person gets paid for 24 hours. So she has to enter 47.99. So that's the level of IT that we're working with on that program. And then she has to send over our payroll to the city because ours isn't integrated with theirs, and they have to manipulate the data again to get our payroll done. A lot of steps, a lot of chances for error. So another IT problem we have. A third one we have is communications. Our fire department members do not have official fire department email addresses. This causes two problems. One is internal. We can't send out any sensitive information, any reports, anything that has to do with a patient to our members because they don't have a secure email address. We're sending it out to their private emails. So we can't discuss patient care reports. We can't discuss call we were on over email. On the external end, we have members of our department interacting with the public for things like inspections or CPR trainings. So an example would be if your business wants to have us run CPR classes for you, you're going to be put in touch with a very good CPR instructor at our department, but you're going to get an email from her that's going to be from ablemom@gmail.com. Not really what you want to see from a professional department sending out personal emails to our stakeholders. Further problems we have with information technology is we have limited access to track our calls. So we can't really track our performance data. This makes it difficult for us to make any improvements on any of our systems. We cannot track trends of our call data. We can't even really benchmark our performance because we don't have good data on what we're doing at the department. So our recommendations for IT, we need to improve our payroll system. Some type of digital system instead of handwritten copies is needed. Firefighters and EMTs need an official department email. We need to integrate our IT systems for the fire department with other city departments. This would include digitizing our inspections and allowing us to interact with the departments that are giving people occupancy permits, things like that. And overall, this was just an example of some of the glaring issues with our IT. We really need to create a plan that looks at the entire IT needs for not just the fire department, but how we can interact with the city in general. So those are our recommendations for IT. I'm going to turn it back over to Lynn to summarize.
Our committee would really like to commend the level of fire department that we have in this city. We were incredibly impressed with the commitment of the leadership and the rank and file of this fire department. Their level of engagement in this entire process tells you that we have something here to be very, very proud of. In summary, our committee recommends that the city move forward to make the changes and undertake the projects that we've identified in the written report that we submitted to you, the most significant of which being to plan for the replacement of Station 2 and begin that planning process as soon as possible. We believe that the Mequon residents have benefited from an artificially low cost to maintaining a very high quality fire department for many years. And we believe it's time to right size that investment to reflect the quality of service that we need and that we've come to expect from our fire department. And that continue to defer that investment will result in an increase in risk and a potential reduced quality of service to our community. And finally, and most critically, we believe that these investments are necessary to support the department in maintaining the high level of fire and EMS services that the citizens of Mequon have come to expect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I would say that at least on the IT side, some of that is being addressed through a citywide study right now, and we do anticipate fixing it. The things like email addresses, that just could be done. You know, that's kind of the chief ought to talk to Len and you'd have email addresses. But, you know, some of these will get fixed through this process, and we hope to work on the rest of them, and that's part of our strategic planning exercise coming up in August and September. So thank you very much. Alderman Parrish.
Great job to the committee. Thank you for your service. My main question is, this is perhaps further down the road, did you ever get into cost of the replacement facility? And I think my bigger question is, did you look at, is the current site where you would rebuild the fire station, or is that's probably not big enough for a large fire station, or is that down the road that we look at?
Well, let me try to answer that, and I guess share with you that in my previous or in my healthcare experience, I have pretty extensive experience in healthcare facility planning, hospitals and clinics and such. And so as we talked about it, one of the things that we said was, for us to go down the road to really try to estimate costs requires in and of itself an investment. And so what we believe is the facility needs to be on the east side of Mequon, and it needs to be in a location that will support the population on the east side. Whether or not it's done at that site or an alternate site really does require some type of further exploration. And I think it does require work with an architect to truly understand the size of the fire department we need, the kind of space we need, and do a level of functional program planning that we weren't prepared to do. And so I would recommend that as an initial step, one would engage an architect, a design firm, who obviously there are folks in this community that have experience doing it in fire stations, and do that kind of functional planning. The functional planning will then tell you the type of spaces. That will then give you an estimate of cost. So when you have a functional plan and you know the amount of space you need and you know the type of space, then you can answer the question, can this site support it? And if the site can support it, that's an option, alternate spaces. But that initial investment to come up with that dollar you're looking at and determine if it is the right location, that's your first step in that investment. And so for us to do it would be an educated darted a dartboard, I think it would be appropriate to do a functional plan.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
And I learned more, so thank you
There
very
you go.
much.
Alderman Meyer.
One of our tasks was just to, and not just to, but was to have the pros and the cons and the good and the bad of our fire department EMS. And we weren't really tasked going down that road to do that. A lot of us felt we didn't have the expertise to do that at all. And I think that we did what we were supposed to do. We presented the issues that the departments have, and we came back to recommendations, but not the finite amount. That's going to be our job here in the Common Council to do some of that, and then our job to be hiring some of the experts to come in and help us make those decisions that we go along. But I don't think that anybody on the Common Council here, and I got to admit, I wasn't aware of in starting this whole thing off, some of the conditions, some of the issues, and that we had previous years that weren't addressed, and a lot of these had really come to a head when we were in the committee and going over these, and we all kind of really realized that it was kind of a really big task for us to get more drilled down than what we did. I think, and I got to thank everybody on the committee. I mean, I've been a Common Council member for a little while, and I've been on a few committees with sharing with the public and with people that are elected officials and that. And the committee that was put together by the mayor had a great look to it and had a lot of people that really participated and really got involved. I can remember the first meeting where all got together and going, geez, what are we going to be doing and who's going to be doing what and how's it going on? And some of the committee members took some leadership positions inside of that. And we had a great staff support from it. We had members of the rank and file that helped us through all of this. We had members from the senior staff and the departments that helped us with that. And I don't think that they leaned us one way or the other. They presented information to us that we requested from them and that in different reports. And we came up with our own conclusions on stuff that we needed to do. It was a long, drawn-out effort. It was very gratifying to get through it, and I appreciate everybody that helped along the way and all the citizen members that were on it. It was a pleasure being on the committee with you guys.
Anybody else? I would challenge Alderman Meyer to work with me since you're the chair of Public Works, to push forward to. I mean, I don't know that we have to wait for the long-range planning exercise to start talking about an RFP for some sort of a facilities assessment type thing for the side fire station. That may be good, information and work to have. And by the time you get it done, we're going to be into the budget for next year anyhow. So, I mean, if we start now, we'll move that forward. And I think that is going to be important information, I think, for our strategic planning. Alderman, we're going to draw check.
Do you have anything else to say? Did you have anything else that you were saying? I didn't want to cut you short.
I'm good.
I just want to again say thank you to the committee, that worked on this. I know several of the members on the committee, and I've worked with them either, in an aldermanic status, or I've known them from other areas in my business dealings or my personal life, and they're people that I trust. Rebuilding Station 2, I'll be very direct, is a hard pill to swallow. It's a big undertaking. It's a big investment, but I remember Alderman Pouquet sitting next to me, when she was an alderman, and then also, she's served as mayor here as well, and she's like, and we were talking about the fire station, the condition of the fire station. She's like, Rob, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible over there. So there's no doubt in my mind that times have changed and the environment has changed, and I support the efforts in reviewing what can happen. My biggest concern, and I'll address it here so that we as we work through the RFP process, which sounds like a very good idea moving forward, is just, the land usage. Land on the east side of Mequon, as we all know, isn't cheap. We also need a functional fire department during the time in which, if we would entertain a rebuild here, what would that look like? So, as we're going through the scope of an RFP to understand what a rebuilt fire department would look like, I'd like to, clearly understand the scope of what we're doing. The other thing that I'm going to ask the chiefs and the committee is, like, right now, just in general, with lumber prices and everything else, this is the worst time to rebuild a large facility from a cost standpoint. So I don't want to back burner anything. I don't want to create an objection that's unnecessary to, get this moving forward. But I would like to look at timing and see if we can't save the taxpayers some funds to build the exact same thing that we might need pre-planned, give you a commitment from the council if we deem that this is appropriate, to move forward at some point in time. So just a couple statements and any comments that you've got on that, I'd appreciate.
I guess my comment would be, when I've sent out RFPs for similar projects, one of the things I've really done is looked at what the detailed timeline would be. And so you will have a detailed timeline for the RFP. You'll have a timeline if you end up having to do land acquisition. You'll have a timeline for functional planning and design, construction documents. So you may find, and I'd say this to probably be realistic and not pessimistic, you may find that that planning parameter to just get you from where you are today to understanding your project could be a year out. And I'm not saying a year out to, you may have a plan and you may know what you're ready to build, but by the time you're ready to build, this takes time, and that may actually work in your favor. You're not going to be constructing something in the next 6 months. It's not realistic. So beginning that and making sure the RFP speaks to the timeline, I think that will be really important.
Thank you.
I would agree with you.
Thank you.
I'd remind you that doing the Public Works building was about a 5-year process. So starting now, you can't project what materials will be by the time you actually started building. So we can still start the process of planning it. If you wait till building prices come down before you plan, all that means is you turn a 3 to 5 year process into another couple of years, and you really haven't timed it well. You're probably back to another materials crisis. Any other comments, Alderman Nurbin?
Just had a question, maybe a clarification of the mayor's challenge to Alderman or Chairman Meyer of the Public Works Committee. Was that with emphasis on Station 2, or did that include Station 1?
Well, I think there needs to be some discussions about that. I mean, I don't know that we're going to decide that here, but if we don't start talking about it, we're never going to figure out what it is we're going to ask for.
I'm sure we're faced with a love it or list it type situation with that location. So,
right, and we have an issue. I mean, we need to make sure that whatever we're doing works with the police department, and the fact that Station 1 might be remodelable for the police department or for the fire department, it might not be for the police department, and we have to look at both those issues together. So what we do with Station 1 and how we, but we're always going to have we really are very likely to have a bigger station on the east side anyhow.
I propose looking at them both at the same time. Just might gain some economies of scale. Really sort the whole works out at once.
Right. Anything else? There's a lot of work to be done on here. We're not going to accomplish it tonight, but thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, a discussion of Resolution 3856, a resolution requiring the resumption of in-person meetings. I provided a sample resolution in the packet, a description. I think we're to the point where we ought to be looking at doing the public's business in person again. Most of us are here this evening. And there's no reason to be having all of our committee meetings virtually at this point. I think there may be some opportunities for using virtual technology going forward, but I don't think we need to wait to go back in person to resolve those issues. I think we go back in person and then talk about, what are the exceptions going to be going forward. And that's, in fact, I thought about doing this last month, but I thought people ought to have a couple months under their belt with the hybrid meetings. But I think we're at a point where we should get back to business as usual. Alderman Strelchak.
I'm glad that you brought this forward, and I'm for in-person meetings. I think the public wants us here working this through live and in person. Virtual was great for a while. I like the fact that you included conditions and opportunities for virtual meetings. I think that we found through this time, like if we had an emergency or something that came up, or a meeting where it was just kind of hard to get to or just meet at, that we'd have the option for a virtual meeting if the chair or the mayor chose that was a good option.
Well, that's not how it's written. It's written right now, we're going back to in-person meetings. The request is to either have public welfare or we could have an ad hoc group if we don't have public welfare do it, to figure out what those policies are.
Did I misread it though? And you left a condition like in an emergency situation we could have virtual, or we need to bring that back forward?
That would need to come back to figure out I think an emergency meeting, perhaps you always could, under emergency powers. I mean, just like we did with COVID, but I think we ought to create a set of standards rather than it's all ad hoc. So this is effectively the resolution that's before you sets us back to where we were pre-pandemic, with a request that either public welfare or if we want to, volunteers to do an ad hoc committee to look at it, to set up some standards. That's what's before you. We're in a committee of the whole. You could amend it however you want to, but just to be clear on what the resolution as written says. Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for clarifying that. I thought that was going to be included, but I did like your suggestions for alternative language that there certainly would be emergency situations where should be allowed. And really the consultant aspect to it was a smart suggestion, because it could save us quite a bit on all our consultant works, because that's part of what they factor in, their time to travel here and stay overnight, et cetera, et cetera. So if we allow that type of presentation, which I'd be fine with, we could save some money and it'd be just as effective. We certainly would need to really invest further in the viewing experience for the public, which I'd be willing to do if it was a reasonable price and opened up access to the public. So, thank you.
Anybody else, or is there a motion to recommend this to the council?
So I move to go back to meeting in person beginning next month, August of 2021.
Yeah, that is what the resolution says. That's in the packet.
I'm just reminding you in case you forgot.
Yes. So there's a motion and a second to recommend the resolution to the council. Any further discussion? Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, just the only thing, I definitely want to see a provision in there for an emergency meeting, if we could just set that up and do that virtually.
Well, I think that
there would be a need for one.
Paragraph 2 of the resolution provides, and there's a blank, that we either fill in public welfare or whomever we want to, unless there's a group who wants to volunteer, public welfare. And the only reason why I didn't put public welfare in it is I think they have kind of a backed up agenda at this point, but maybe I'm wrong.
We've caught up.
What's that?
We have caught up.
Okay, so
Does
your motion suggest public welfare to fill in the blank like that?
And public welfare would be happy to work on it.
So we'd add public welfare to the blank on number 2. Then they would come and create a list of standards or exceptions. I think that if we're going to meet any sort of state legal standard, we need to have an ordinance that allows us to do things in true emergency fashion. I think maybe current law allows it, but those are very few and far between. And there may be other instances where we, somebody, a meeting like we had at Public Safety tonight, something goes wrong and you want to hold an extra meeting, maybe you can hold a virtual meeting to cover that. You know, there could be some circumstances. And I've got some other suggestions, but we'll have Public Welfare look at that. We're kind of hoping we have that already. So we have a motion and a second to recommend this to the council. All in favor of recommending it to the council, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. We reconvene as the Common Council, and guess what? We're going to take up Resolution 3856, which was the thing we were just talking about, the resumption of in-person meetings. We have a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to approve the Resolution 3856 with Public Welfare filled in on paragraph 2?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Resolution 3857, a resolution approving a revolving loan fund application for Alexa Learning Center. I understand that we have the applicant here. We'll see you can step forward, but we'll see if anybody has any questions. This was recommended by the Economic Development Board on June 29th. Finance personnel recommends it to you this evening. Why don't you just introduce yourself, but probably don't need to do much more than that because I'm guessing this is not going to be a long drawn-out discussion.
Of course. Good evening. My name is Julia Kimkovich, and I've been a resident of Mequon for actually 18 years now. We are in the process of purchasing the building, which will become a new home for Alexa Learning Center. And Alexa is actually my daughter, so I only have amazing things associated with her. So I'm really excited to make this learning center to become the world of first discoveries and knowledge for young kids. I'm asking for like $100,000 funds for purchasing the building, upgrading it, furniture, electronics. I'm putting myself $150,000 into the project, and we're gonna do our best to open this fall.
Thank you, and thank you for investing in our community. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Congratulations, and we look forward to you opening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, Resolution 3859. This is, 3858. I almost skipped Ms. Angroff. A resolution appointing Jennifer Angroff to the position of Director of Finance, City Treasurer. Ms. Angroff is online. If you look at your monitors, this was recommended this evening by the Finance Personnel Committee. Don't worry about it. Do you want to add anything, Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the Common Council. Before you tonight is a resolution appointing Jennifer as our new Finance Director and City Treasurer. Staff moved quickly to fill this vacancy, which became apparent right before Memorial Day when our former Finance Director, Caitlin Krieger, accepted the Finance Director position in Sheboygan. We had a very competitive process, almost 20 applications. And with the able assistance of the mayor and our Common Council president, we were able to work through the finalists for the position and arrive at Ms. Angroff, who will likely be starting sometime in mid-August.
And not only do we have a fine new appointee, she also happens to be a Mequon resident, which is icing on the cake. Any discussion, or is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Welcome, Ms. Angroff, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next item, Resolution 3859. This is to approve the award of a contract for development of an organizational strategic plan with Better-Faster Consulting of Madison. This is recommended to you by the Finance Personnel Committee. I will ask Mr. Jones to briefly tell us about this process.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Better Dash Faster was the firm recommended to help us develop our first inaugural strategic plan. As many of you know on the council, we are looking this year to combine strategic planning with our budget development process. We will be in receipt of nearly $2.5 million in additional revenue through the American Recovery Plan Act, which is going to give us the opportunity to backfill some of the expenditures that we had to cut between fiscal year 2020 and 2021. And that is in all likelihood going to open up some free time for the council to delve into longer, more strategic issues like we just discussed here a few moments ago regarding the future of our public safety buildings. So the firm Better Dash Faster has worked with many communities, corporations, and not-for-profits across the state of Wisconsin. They come highly recommended by some of the other chief elected officials and administrators here in southeast Wisconsin. And the mayor and I both recommend their appointment tonight, and they're ready to go here this week if they are appointed this evening.
I would only add at least Alderman Meyer, and I don't know about Alderman Nurbin, worked with Maureen Murphy, and she has used Better Dash Faster down in Mount Pleasant and speaks glowingly. She said, quirky guy when you first meet him, but by the time they were done, people really liked working with him. So, and that was the impression I had during the interview also. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk.
And that passes. Resolution 3860, a resolution approving a waiver of repurchase and right of first refusal rights for COPS Industry. This is recommended to you by the Finance Personnel Committee this evening. Does anyone have any questions before we entertain a motion? Alderman Parrish is going to recuse himself. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing Alderman Nurbin.
I understand the nature of the request for the waiver. I was wondering if does this create some sort of precedence for anyone else to request a similar such waiver? And if it does, is there a better way to word it, whereupon we could put the lending institution in front of us if they had happened to make substantial improvements to the property, and we were trying to hedge against people buying land on speculation with this? But if someone puts a $30 million building on it, clearly they're not speculating. Is there a different way to word that, or am I worried about nothing?
Yeah, I don't think it sets any precedent. I think each one of these would be analyzed on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances that you're dealing with. Whether, the time of, when in the life of the TID that you're dealing with, what type of project it is, all of those factors would go into it. And so I don't think that any one particular approval would mandate that we do something similar on the next one.
I would point out that in, I don't know what, a few dozen approvals there have already been. This is the, you said second time? So he said he did this because I think it's the first time we've had this request.
Okay.
But it is the bank is insisting on it. Mr. Jones.
I was merely going to add that the TIF district is scheduled to expire in about 2 years, and so precedentially this may be moot.
Okay.
We hope we have another one. So do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
And that passes. Resolution 3861 is to reject all bids for the road improvements irrigation. It's kind of an awkwardly titled thing. Removal of the irrigation system in the business park. Did Public Works recommend this evening?
Public Works did recommend it this evening. I'm not sure if it was, we had a glitch, so I'm sure if it was nothing or 3-0 because we couldn't get everything, but it was approved.
All right, do you have a motion?
And I have a motion to approve the rejection of the bids.
And is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Resolution 3862, this is to award a streetlight removal contract for the business park. And what happened at Public Works this evening?
Public Works approved this unanimously, and I make a motion to approve Resolution 3861.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman
Sorry,
Hand-
it's 3862. I said
What did I say?
3861. I said 3861. 3862.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
And that passes. Resolution 3863, this is to authorize an agreement with the Department of Transportation for a temporary limited easement in connection with the I-43 freeway expansion project. This was recommended by the Municipal Water Utility Commission on June 8th. And what did Public Works do this evening?
Public Works approved unanimously, and I make a motion to approve Resolution 3863.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Resolution 3864, and this is to have a cleaning contract for the public safety building, so it might not be a pretty building, but it'll be a clean one. What did Public
helps.
Works do this evening?
Public Works did approve this unanimously, but we did direct the city staff to take a look at including the East Side Fire Station and get some subsequent bids on that, or not get bids, but get some costs on that from the provider. So we did approve it unanimously, and I make a motion to approve Resolution 3864.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing, go ahead, Alderman Strelchak.
With the additional station, did we have any discussion of dollars, maybe a not to exceed amount, or would that just come back before the committee here?
That would come back.
That'll come back. Okay, great.
Any further discussion? I don't want to cut anyone off. Please call the roll.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
And Resolution 3865, and this is to purchase a police vehicle. My understanding is Public Safety was unable to address this evening. We can either move to go into a committee of the whole, or somebody could move to suspend the rules and take up the item.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules and take this up without a committee recommendation to.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor of suspending the rules and taking up this item this evening? Please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed to it? Hearing none. Now we take up the item. We have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a motion to approve the
Move
purchase of the
approval
police
to the
vehicle?
purchase of the fire and
Second.
police vehicle.
We have a motion and a second, and all the equipment that's included
Yeah.
with the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Schneider,
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
And we got a new cop car. The next item is an appointment to the Architectural Board, that a nomination I've made. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 I'd like to thank Mr. Curran. He kind of got left off last month, so we got caught up. The next item is a potential closed session. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of background and actually suggest we don't go into closed session. So potential closed session: acquisition of a stormwater drainage easement across the property at 9731 North Cortland Drive. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 1985-1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene in open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. I would ask that we simply put this over to next month's meeting. Let me give a little bit of background. This involves a pipe that went through a yard. It was creating a sinkhole. Staff talked about fixing it. They, at the same time, said, look, we don't really have a formal recorded easement in connection with this. We probably should. There actually may be something on the certified survey map, and the city attorney is going to look at that more carefully. Secondly, we may have an easement by state law because this pipe has been there for 30 years. We had an appraisal done to see what the cost, what the appraiser thought we should pay for the easement. It was more money than staff thought. The property owner is asking for more money than that. We may or may not need to pay him anything. And I think we need to have, and also the Public Works believes there may be an opportunity at a much lower dollar amount to run the pipe in a different direction. So I think we need to have a better understanding of what our options are, and perhaps go into closed session to talk about our negotiating strategy next month. But I think that the information that we have to discuss tonight would be inadequate. We could go into closed session to discuss where we want to go, but I don't know that it's necessarily a great idea. So is there Alderman Parrish?
Oh yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think I agree with your recommendation. I just remember when this came in front of Public Works, there was some time-sensitive nature to this, just because the ground in that particular area would be unstable and subject to erosion. So that I know engineering had some concerns, but I agree with you. We weren't in favor of the easement. We preferred to go down that route and explore alternatives.
Engineering is fine with this. We discussed it this morning.
As I understand it, in my discussions with them, the concern was, as we were heading into the spring with snow melts and everything else, that it may cause some flooding issues. Since we've managed to get through that period, there's a little bit less of urgency because it's
and still have time yet this fall.
Thank you.
So I'd look for a motion to table this item.
Move to table.
Second.
We have a motion to table. That's a non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to table, please say aye.
Aye.
That item is tabled. Alderman Gerald, do you have another motion for us?
Oh, sure. How about I move to adjourn?
Oh, Alderman Boucher.
Don't you have an appointment?
What's that?
Don't you have an appointment?
We did that.
We did that.
Maybe we had a glitch.
Sorry.
No problem. I sometimes skip roll calls. Everybody's got those moments. So Alderman Gerald has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Next month.
This conference is no longer being recorded.